Hey everybody, it is Friday and we're here for another masterclass, and today it's a special episode because I want to talk to you all about the new features that are in Fresco 2.0. This is the version of Fresco that was released at the MAX 2020 keynote event, and lots of people have downloaded and discovered that, oh my gosh, we added a whole bunch of things, and I thought it'd be fun to go through some of these features one by one and just take a look at them so that you could better understand them and start using them in your own work. So thank you for joining me, and why don't we get started? I want to say a quick hello to some folks in the chat. I see we have Cody Bear and Vanessa, Mercurial and Ariana. Thanks for joining me, and Mehmet. Thanks everybody, and I'm going to be trying to keep an eye on the chat as we go here. And we're going to get started. So here we have my iPad screen ready to go. And I wanted to start with one of my favorite features and something that I've been excited about for a long time, which is Smudge. So here we go. We are going to first take a look at this tool. If you look at my toolbar here on the left, it is the hand with a finger that is pointing downwards and just kind of moving around like that. And what you're able to do with Smudge in Fresco is you can use any of the pixel brushes to smudge. And you'll notice if I open up the window right here, I'm currently in the dry media section. But if I just jump back, you'll see, there are all of my pixel brushes from Fresco that you know and love from all the different categories, okay? And all of my library brushes are also available here. Now, library brushes, if you haven't used libraries, what are libraries? This means that if you have a Creative Cloud account of any kind, you can create libraries of various assets, and these can be things like brushes, it can be images, they can be videos, they can be sounds. And what's great about libraries is they travel with you. Imagine them being like this little virtual suitcase that anytime you log in to any machine, whether it's an iPad or it's a desktop or a laptop or a tablet, and you are running some kind of Adobe software on that tablet, whether it's Photoshop or Illustrator or Fresco, your libraries will show up automatically along with all those assets that you have saved in them, and that is just so convenient. One of the great things about this too is if you save work in libraries, well, you know that that work is never going to disappear, and you're not going to lose it if you lose your device. Same with these tools and so on. So it's really kind of a wonderful thing. And here are some libraries that I have, and libraries, what's great about them is I don't have to go and search for them and load them into the app. They just automatically show up. So any library you've ever created that has brushes or vector shapes or capture brushes, and we're going to talk about capture brushes here in this show today, they will automatically show up in Fresco because those particular assets work in Fresco. All right, now back to the lovely Smudge tool. Now, by default, when you first open Fresco and you want to use Smudge, what normally happens is you'll have it on the graphite tool, okay, here in the dry media category. And I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to smudge a little bit, and you'll see, look at that. Beautiful. Zoom in on that. Now, you might notice something really cool here about Smudge in Fresco, and that is that the texture of the brush is retained. The texture of the brush is retained when you smudge, which is a really wonderful feature. And this makes it possible for you to have this grainy look to the smudge if you're using a dry media tool like this, for example, this graphite or something like charcoal. But also any other kind of texture that's baked into a brush is going to show up when you smudge with it. So that is quite a nice feature. Now, I want to talk to you about controlling this effect of smudging. So hang on a moment. I'm just going to check the chat, and I want to see what folks are saying in case we have any questions at this point. I should hope not, since we're early on, but I just want to make sure. It says, what was the answer to one of the earlier questions? Chantel is saying that. What question are we looking for here? I don't see any questions. So I guess for now we're okay, and I'm going to carry on, okay? And I'll check in periodically to see if we have any questions about anything. Now, I want to talk about controlling the effects of Smudge. There are two important things to keep in mind when you're using the Smudge tool in Fresco for creating different effects. Let's take a look. Now, first of all, you're going to want to be able to control what you would consider the flow of a brush, only in smudge, what we do is we call that the strength. Okay, so imagine a lot of smudge or a little bit of smudge. So if you're cranking smudge all the way up to 100, what's going to happen is you're going to push the pixels around much more, with a lot more force, so to speak, and you're going to drag them a lot farther, and you're going to get more of a smudgy looking effect. However, if you bring the strength down, you'll look here and see I have my strength at about half, 53%. This is going to then give me, whoops, I'm sorry, folks. Thanks for catching me on that. Here we go. All right. The strength of the smudge is what I'm talking about, which is this little slider right here where you normally would find your brush flow. Okie dokie. All right. Now, I'm talking about how much strength you have. If you crank it all the way up to 100, what happens is then when I smudge with it, I want you to see something here. I'm just going to undo the smudging I did a moment ago. And now I'm going to smudge with this at a strength of 100. And whoa, look at the difference. Well, what's happening there? Basically, the color that I am touching first, in this case it was the pink in the right part of this square, right, is going to just get dragged all around. Eventually it's going to blend in with the blue, but man, it takes a while. Okay, that's because I have a lot of strength with that smudge. So I'll put it back down around 50% where it was, okay, and now you see, very much, that's much better for blending, isn't it? But it depends on the effect that you want to go for. And the great thing to know here is that you have total control over this. But what is the second thing you need to control the smudge effects? Well, here you go. If you open up your brush settings in the very bottom left corner here, see this little icon that has a brush and then two lines and little circles? This is your brush settings. For smudge, you'll notice that you can control the spacing, okay, right here. Just like you can control the spacing of a brush. And what spacing is with brushes or smudge or any pixel-based drawing is you have a stamp, which is the shape that you're essentially dragging around the canvas, and that's what's creating a brush stroke, or in this case, a smudge stroke. Now, if I increase the spacing, what that means is I'm going to have fewer instances of that stamp being applied to the canvas as I drag my stylus around, okay? And that is going to then lessen the effect of the smudge. So let's crank this up to 50%. And now I'm going to smudge over here. You see what happens? It's breaking it apart, okay? Now, by contrast, I'll jump over to the right, okay, the square to the right of this square, come back to my smudge, and I'm going to crank it all the way down to 0. Now look, same brush, right? Same smudge tool, same brush, only now with 0 spacing. Oh, totally different effect. Completely different, right? And so you have to decide where is that happy sweet spot for the effect that you are looking for in your work. And you'll be able to find it with a combination of strength, okay, and spacing. All right, and eventually you'll get to the spot that you like best depending on the tool you're using. Now remember, thousands of brushes can be used as smudge tools, okay? They all will work here in Fresco. So the options are kind of overwhelming, but that's a fun thing because you can have a lot of fun with this. Now, let me just check here. Anybody have any questions? Great day for little glitches and spasms in everyone's stream today. Yes, Steve, I noticed that. And apparently people are having some trouble with YouTube. I've noticed that at the moment, my stream is in good shape, but not excellent shape. I'm usually looking for that excellent little notification from YouTube, so I'm a little concerned. Let's see how it goes. Okie dokie. Now, William says, I can see so many uses for the smudge tool. Well, yes, we're going to get to some of those here in a moment, some practical uses. All right, quickly, I'll just show you a couple of examples of what happens if I switch it up and use completely different brushes for the smudging. Now, let's take, for example, the Cezanne brush. Okay, and I'm going to actually put a little color on that. And I'll hide my swatches for just a moment. And come over here. And I'm going to paint with this brush so you see what it looks like. Now, this brush takes advantage of color dynamics, which is great. So I'm getting a nice variety in the color as I paint with every stroke. So that stamp is changing ever so slightly with hue, saturation, and value with every stroke. But let me take a look at that as a smudge tool and see what's possible. So you saw the characteristics of that brush, right? I'll come back over to that smudge tool and grab our Cezanne brush from the same category here in painting. And here it is. All right. And now I'm going to look at the strength. It's the same as what the brush was, and smudge spacing looks about right. What happens when I smudge with that? Ooh, lovely. So what you're getting now are these impressionistic sort of strokes right there. See that? I'll do that again for you so you can really see it clearly here. Those first couple of hits, you'll notice a couple of little dots. Oh yeah. So depends on what you want to do. I can increase the strength, remember? And that allows me to go farther with the smudging. So here you can have two colors that are neighboring one another, and then bam, you can use a brush like the Cezanne brush and you can get these beautiful impressionistic blends between the two of them. Very powerful stuff, right? But say you want to change it up. Maybe you want to do something like with one of the rake brushes. So why don't we grab the rake pressure brush and see what that does? Well, check this out. Whoa, that's some pretty nifty stuff. What happens if I increase the strength? Oh my gosh. See that? Just by bumping that strength up, now I'm getting these pretty amazing, wicked effects with that pressure rake brush. So there are just so many nifty effects you can do here. I think I've said nifty effects 10 times in a row now, so I'm gonna have to retire that phrase for the moment. All right, now what about practical uses for this? Well, hang on a moment. Why don't we just take a look at something here? I am going to do a little drawing for you here. And I think I'll use a charcoal brush. So we'll grab a charcoal brush here. And I love this vine charcoal. And I'm just gonna go for a nice jet black. Oh, there we go. Lovely, lovely. All right, I'll reduce that flow a little bit and bump the size down. And we'll do the standard thing all the artists always do when they're trying to demo something, which is the old human eye, right? Never gets old. Or does it? I don't know, you tell me. It's just kind of a go-to. Okay, throw a little pupil in there, yada, yada, yada. A little tone up there. And throw a little shading here under that lower lid. And gotta get that upper lid, that fold there. Lovely. And a little shadow next to where bridge of the nose is. Okay, come up this way. You get the picture, right, gang? Okie dokie. Now, if you've ever drawn with charcoal or graphite, I'm sure you're familiar with the technique of drawing and smudging, right? Smudging is just a natural part of the process. Moving that graphite or charcoal around is part of the deal, right? Keita, is Fresco still free? Fresco is totally free. For how long? Indefinitely. It's free right now. I don't know of it ever changing. So go grab it. And it comes free with all kinds. It basically comes free with every single feature with a few limitations. The only ones being that you don't have access to all of the Photoshop brushes in the Photoshop brush library that we have, like 1,600 brushes in that set of brushes that I made and is now part of your subscription to Adobe, and some extra storage space. Apart from that, all the things you see me doing here, all the tools, all the menus, all the features, all the layer actions, unlimited layers, high resolution export of your files, working with the live watercolors and the oils, all these things, they're all part of the free version. So really, I can't recommend it highly enough. Go grab it. All right, now, any other questions? Let's see here. Brushes, charcoal smudger. Okay, yeah, so here we go. So I'm drawing with charcoal now. I'm gonna grab one of those nice dry media smudge tools. We'll come over here, we'll go to dry media. I like soft chalk, okay? So I got my soft chalk. I'm gonna put the strength up to about 30-ish, or maybe like, yeah, maybe about 30. And look, I can control my spacing, remember? So I'll set that about 10. And then I'm just going to come over here, and oh yeah, that's the ticket right there. Start smudging that. I love it. Oh, and by the way, don't forget, if you come up here to your brush settings, okay, here in the app settings, and go to input, you can, if you wish, use touch to draw with the brush, which means, I love doing this. I'll show you this with my hand here for just a second, okay? So what I like to do is I like to hold my Apple Pencil like this, and I will draw, and then I'll take my finger off the pencil and I will smudge with my finger and then go back to drawing. It's just like I'm working with real charcoal on paper. Now that's fun. Okay, so check it out. Now I'm just going to smudge with my finger. I'm smudging with my finger right now. Now you can't see this maybe, but that's what I'm doing. So I'm drawing and I'm smudging. This is so satisfying. Oh yeah. Okay, now you get the idea. And you may be wondering, but Kyle, does pressure influence what you're doing? Like pen pressure? Absolutely. So if you want a totally precise smudging effect, you use the stylus, you use the pressure, right? And you go to town. So I love doing this. I'll smudge a little bit, draw on top of the smudging action, and just keep on going, right? This is just such a natural way to work. And gosh, what else is there to say? But there's a really practical way to use smudge, isn't it, right? So that's one thing. Of course, the thing we think of most with smudge is blending. So you're thinking about blending two areas, blending one area into another. I'll zoom in so you can see all that nice gritty texture that is retained with the smudge tool. Hope you can all see that clearly. Alrighty. Ta-da! All right, now, moving on. Let's talk about mixing color. So grab a little brush with some paint here. Let's do maybe the canvas brush, right? That's a nice simple one. And grab this nice pink color, put a little color down, and we'll just grab another yellow here and put it next to it like so. All right, and I want to smudge this in a nice painterly way. Well, guess what, gang? Just use the same brush. Use the same brush you're painting with. So I come over here and I go to my painting category, and I'm going to use that same brush, canvas brush flat, right? Oh, I've got this way too strong. Look at that, the strength is on 100. My mistake. Put it on 50, got our spacing up to maybe about like 4. Oh yeah, look at that. Now I'm smudging with exactly the same brush. So what that means is that texture is retained. Do you see the canvas texture there? Let me zoom in on that. The canvas texture that is tied to the brush itself is reflected in the smudging. Now that is really cool. So there's another thing, blending things together, blending two areas together. What about moving outside of the boundaries of an area that you have painted? Well, my favorite example of this is in this illustration that I did not too long ago. And what you're looking at here with the hair effects, okay, and the effects of the dress are actually done mostly with smudge, believe it or not. So let me show you how this works. I'm just going to create, actually, I'll work on the same layer. I can always undo it. So here I have the layer that has the hair right there. Okay, this is the base layer, and here's what I've added on top of it. And all I do is come in here and get my smudge tool. See that? I've got the rake pressure tool, and I just crank that strength up to 100. Okay, and watch what happens when I start pulling through here. Look at that. Fantastic. It's pulling all those colors and it's painting with those colors as I pull them across the canvas. So am I actively painting? No, look, I'm now moving over here to the left of the hair. You can't see this, but I'm scrubbing all over the canvas and nothing's happening because the smudge tool is not a painting tool. Okay, so once again, now I touch an area and oh my gosh, how fun is that? Just keep that going all day long. So that is one of the other ways you can use smudge, and I really like that. I wanted to demonstrate that for you. Now, since I have this illustration up, I want to talk about another feature that we've added, and this is very convenient. Let me check this out. If you look here under the thumbnail of the image, we have 3 little dots. I just tap on that, and one of them says View Version History. View Version History. I'm just checking the status of my stream. Looks like everything's still good. Not excellent, but good. I do hope that the resolution you all are seeing there with what I'm doing looks decent enough, okay, for you to catch all these little subtle details. Now, if I tap on View Version History, look what happens. It opens up my Creative Cloud app, okay, and check this out. Here is the illustration on the left, and over on the right we have different versions of it every time this illustration was saved. Can you believe it? So I can jump all the way back to September 20th and look at that. This same document, I hadn't even started drawing that woman yet in the dress. So this document had all kinds of things going on, layers being erased, layers being added, but maybe I thought, oh gosh, I wish I still had that drawing I had done way back. Well, guess what? I can now come and grab that, I can restore it, and I can open that and I can save it as a new document, and I haven't lost my work. come over this way. Ah, look, September 21st, just a day later, was the beginnings of that drawing. So this is really cool. I can see how the illustration evolved. I can see all the version histories. And sometimes, you know, you make a change to something and you go, oh, darn it. I closed it. I saved it. You know, I wish I was able to save a copy of that from an earlier stage. Well, now you can do that. You just go back here through your version history. It's all saved with the file itself. So that is extremely convenient. So that's version history. It's located right here under the thumbnail. You go to View Version History. And I'll tell you something else. While you're in the middle of working on a file, if you're in the zone and you're like, you know what? I've reached a point in this illustration where I feel like it could be finished, but now I want to experiment and do a whole bunch of other things just to see if I can push it a little farther. Well, here's what you do. At the top of my menu here, at the very top of the screen, there's a little drop-down arrow where the title, right now you see it says Untitled September 12th. I tap on that, and now we have the option to Save Now. If I tap Save Now, it's going to create a snapshot of that with all the layers, and it's going to put it in my version history, and I can always come back to that exact moment. Very, very nice. Alrighty, so come back here. Next thing I want to talk to you all about is type. Before I move on, I want to see, are there any questions about Smudge? I'm just looking at the chat here. And I see multicolor brush. Someone was talking about a multicolor brush. Now I don't know which brush you're talking about. I want to make sure I will cover multicolor quickly if you'd like me to. What's the difference between blending and smudging? Kata, it's just how you use the smudge tool. You're either using it to blend or using it for other kind of effects like I've shown. Hope that's helpful. I saw someone paint with a brush that was, oh, here's the comment about, yes, multicolor swatch, multicolor eyedropper. What an amazing feature. I'll briefly cover that right now if you like, just before I move on to type. How's that sound? Why don't we do that? Okay, now, why don't we do that? Okay, so I'll just open up this document here. This is actually was created with multicolor swatch. Several things were done here. For example, the effects you see on the shirt were done with multicolor, just as one example. You'll notice I have this mess of colors over here in the bottom left of this document. Okay, now multicolor eyedropper could not be easier to use. All you have is this little circle called the touch modifier. I'm now dragging it around the screen simply by touching it with my finger and moving it around. The touch modifier allows you to do multiple things. For example, you can paint with a brush and then erase with that same brush simply by holding down that same touch modifier. So watch this. If I touch it, look what it looks like. See that little circle shows up outside it? That means I'm in the first mode of the touch modifier. Now with the brush, what that means is I can paint and then hold down the touch modifier, and now I'm erasing with exactly that same brush. Very convenient, really fast, really easy. If you feel like you don't want to hold it down, simply double tap on it, and now it locks it in that position to where you are now erasing until you double tap it again to go back to normal. Now, if you're painting and you lift up the stylus, hold down the touch modifier with one finger. So I'm holding it down with my thumb right now. And then with my other finger, my other hand, I'm just dragging it around the screen. Now, normally, this is how you would call up any color, right? But instead, I'm doing a multicolor selection. So when I let go of the touch modifier after making that selection, if you look carefully in the color well right here, right where you see my color, you'll see a tiny little version of that face, okay? And now I'm painting with that stamp. See that? You can actually see little versions of that face everywhere when I paint. Okay, so that has become what I've loaded the brush with, all those colors, and in fact, that actual part of the illustration is now on the brush, so to speak. That is how multicolor eyedropper works, which means there's a lot you can do with it. In addition to being able to paint with multiple colors at once, which of course is very cool. For example, I can do this, and I should probably use a brush now that isn't already so jumpy like this impressionist brush. So let me find something a bit more natural. Here, let's use the wet bristle brush, and you'll see there. Now you see what I'm talking about, okay? So I've got all those colors loaded on the brush and I'm painting with them all at once. And of course, there's a lot you could do with this, so much. So not just painterly effects, but there are also special effects you can do with it. For example, if I can find my little monkey friend here, I'll go back to my work. Here he is. You may have seen this, you may not have seen this in the demonstration that I did for Adobe MAX, where I have this little set of leaves here, and I simply hold down my touch modifier and I select those leaves. Okay, and what I do is I use the hard round variable brush. Okay, and I come over here and I just increase the spacing. See that? Till I like what I see. And then I come over to the shape dynamics and I change the flip Y jitter on so that that stamp will flip horizontally. Okay, and then I can basically paint vines. Check that out. Make that a little bigger. See? So you basically can make custom brushes on the fly with the multicolor eyedropper as well, and that's nuts. Not only that, but you could do things like, here's something weird you could do. Let me just grab a regular painting brush here. 1 second, I'll use the Blair brush for this. And I'm just gonna paint a little circle. Something kind of circular, good enough, right? And I'm going to then lock layer transparency. What that means is I'm gonna make it so I can only paint inside the pixels that I see here on screen. So, whoops, not lock layer. There we go. We're gonna lock the layer transparency. And I'm going to grab a slightly darker color, paint right there. Okay, a little darker for a coarse shadow kind of thing. And I'm gonna go back and do a little highlight kind of thing over here, make it a little lighter. All right, grab my smudge tool, smudge that all together. See, nice handy dandy use of the smudge tool. Give that sort of the feeling of having 3 dimensions. And I think I'll just pop a little highlight there at the top. Why not? Okay, smudge that a little bit. All right, now why would I do something like this? Okay, check this out. Hold down touch modifier, select the entire circle, okay? And I could use a brush again, like let's say the basic hard round brush, okay? Make sure that my spacing is down to 0. And let's hide this, come over here. Okay. What I'm trying to do is I don't want to have any opacity change. So 1 second, I'm going to go to a brush that has 0 opacity change. Let's try this. And I'm going to take the spacing down to 0. There. So now it's like I'm painting this weird 3D tube kind of thing. See that? Isn't that weird? So imagine if you wanted to take that even farther and do some kind of metallic piping or do some kind of details on clothing, anything with a 3-dimensional look, you could do it, if that makes sense. Now, you might be wondering about changing the color. Don't worry. If you open the Hsb Sliders here, okay? The Hsb Sliders, right, they're right under the color wheel. I can simply change the hue to whatever I want. I can change the saturation. I can change the brightness. Okay, now I've got that. So you can change the color of a multicolor swatch that you've selected, and that is no problem at all. Okay, so bring our monkey back, and there. Now, let's talk about type, okay? So, here we have an illustration, and I've got this little circle in place where I want to put a little type on there. So type in Fresco is so easy. You just tap on the type tool, which is this little T that you'll see here. It's highlighted in blue right now. And just tap and drag wherever you want to start typing. All right. And if you double tap inside that text, it's going to let me pull up my keyboard here. And I'll just say, here is some type. Exciting. Alrighty, now, once I've committed that type, all I have to do is start dragging from either side, and you'll notice that it's going to keep all of my type from getting distorted. I can size it up this way, I can size it up that way, using the handles at the bottom, or the left or right, or the top. I can rotate it if I need to. Alright, so I'll get the size somewhere around where I want it, and then over here on the right, you'll see automatically that our properties show up for text like you would expect. So I can justify it to center. There we go. I can then change the spacing, and I love this new spacing tool we have here. Same one that we have in Illustrator on the iPad. So I can simply move this slider to get my letter spacing really tight if I want, right? Just keep tightening that up. Or I can enter an actual value with the keypad if I want. And then I can change my line spacing the same way. So I just tap on that, and see this? I have that same nice little slider, so I just kind of slide that until it feels good. Alrighty. And naturally you want to be able to use different fonts and so on. And so if you look here, we have a bunch of fonts that are my system fonts. Okay, those aren't very exciting, are they? But if I tap on more fonts at the bottom, suddenly look at all these categories. Let's just say I want to go for Art Deco. Holy cow, look at all of these. So there are thousands of fonts you can choose from that are absolutely free. These all come from the Adobe Fonts library. And you can even get more fonts than this if you go to the bottom here and you see where it says thousands of fonts from Adobe Fonts are included with a subscription to Creative Cloud. Want to keep exploring? You can then open the mobile app and you can load in any of the fonts you want from the Adobe Font Library. I believe there's like 16,000 of them, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, you really are not going to have any issues selecting something neat. I'll just grab something like this. Very nice, very nice. And I can commit, I can resize it, right? If you do want to transform it and distort it, you use the transform tool, right? Or the move tool right here. See our move and transform tool? Now you'll notice, it's starting to transform that type, okay? So that is an option too if you wish to do that. All right, now this is just the beginning of type in Fresco. We're going to be bringing some improvements and some cool new features to this throughout 2021, so stay tuned. But the fact that it's even here is extremely exciting. There's so much you can do with it, and it's really, really easy to use. I love that. And as you would expect, that is live type. It remains live, okay? So you needn't worry about that. And I can come over here and you'll notice that it automatically created a text layer for me. I didn't have to create another layer separately. It's right there, so I can hide that now. It's at the top of my layer stack. The other thing about this layer is that if you wish to convert it to a pixel layer, you can of course open up your menu options, and right here at the very bottom, you have two options. Look at this, convert to pixel layer, or what do you see above that at the very bottom? What do you see there? Convert to vector layer. Oh my goodness. If I convert it to the vector layer, well, just as you would expect, that automatically creates paths, which is so cool because now it's infinitely scalable, right? And it's still super, super clean and tight, as you would expect. So can't do that anywhere else, gang. Pretty cool, right? All right, so that is type in Fresco. Want to change the color of the type? Well, don't worry. I'll go back to where it's live type. All I do is I simply open up this color wheel and just go, and you can see it changing live as I move it around. Right, so that keeps things nice and simple. I can just grab some color from here and boom, changes it. So now I've got some harmonious color from the document. All right, let's see, any questions here? So many fonts, so little type, haha, I get it. Don't think I've seen on type on Windows laptop. I don't know if it's on Windows laptop version. I'd be surprised if it isn't, but you can double check on the Fresco website where all of the updates to the app, it'll show you the updates and it'll show you which systems they're available for at this very moment. But I'm pretty sure it's coming to Windows soon if it's not already there. Cody Bears just confirmed it's not available for Windows yet, so there's your answer. However, I'm sure it's going to be there very soon. We try and keep the versions of Fresco on all platforms as similar as possible. That's very important to us to do that. Of course, as you know, though, it's difficult work for the engineers because they're working with completely different code to make all that happen. All right, now, let's keep it rolling. So I'm going to come back this way. there's something I want to talk to you now, and this is a convenience thing. This is about control. All right, so let me just open this up again. Now, if you look over here, you will see that I got a ton of brushes, folks. Okay, look at all these libraries of brushes. That's crazy. Well, we now have brush management in Fresco. Now, this is step 1 of brush management. This is going to be a whole system we're developing, but I want to first show you where we are at this point. If you open up your pixel brushes and look at the very top where it says pixel brushes, over to the right, there are 3 little dots. And I just tap on those 3 dots. You see manage pixel brushes. Ta-da! Now, how does this work? It's simple, so simple. All you do is turn on or off what you want to see. Okay, that's all you have to do. So check this out. I can turn off all these categories if I don't use these brushes. Let's say that you're a purist and you only use the basic brushes and maybe some of the dry media. You can turn everything else off and then you've cleaned up that window, but maybe you use only a few brushes in one category. Well, no problem. You can click on the effects category, for example. Maybe you only use the spatter brushes, so you just go in and hide all the other ones. And this is how you keep everything nice and tidy, right? You also have the option to hide all, show all, so you're not sitting there turning off little toggles there. But this is a really great step forward for brush management. I wanted you to be aware of it. Another convenient thing is everybody draws differently, okay? You draw differently than I do. I draw differently than you do. What I mean by this is we have a different touch, a different hand. Some of us are more heavy-handed when we draw. We really dig into the surface. Others have a really light touch. A lot of people have an injury. They might have a repetitive stress injury. They need to be using as light a touch as possible to make a mark. Well, now, if you look here, in the brush settings panel, at the very bottom, you will see the option for stylus pressure. Okay. Now, when I open the stylus pressure, check this out. You now have the option to go from the lightest of light, right? See that? Of light pressure, and you can test it over here on the right, all the way up to the heaviest where you really got to bear down and everything in between. But you can also customize the pressure curve itself, which is what you see here underneath, right? And that's what I'm fooling with right now. So you can mess around with that pressure curve. The further you move up to the top left corner of this this grid here, okay? So if I push everything up this way, without going crazy there, don't want to do that. There we go. So the further you move up to the top left corner, the lighter your pressure is going to be, all right? And you can just really just barely touch the surface and you're going to be making marks. So you can use these presets if you like, or you can make it your own. You can always reset it. And when you feel comfortable with that, you're good to go, all right? And this can make everybody feel comfortable when they're drawing. I think that's really important. All right, I want to show you a crazy feature right now. And what this is capture ribbon brushes. And a lot of people who used to use Adobe Photoshop Sketch might know what capture ribbon brushes are, but even our audience and our customers who used that app for the 4 or 5 years that it was out actually didn't take advantage of capture ribbon brushes as much as they should have. And I really want to show you how cool this is. So check this out. Oh, I have a question here. Can you save something as a brush in Fresco? Great question. Well, guess what? I'm about to show you how, okay? So why don't we hide this for a moment? Alrighty, now I'm going to start with dry media here, and I'm going to grab Conti Crayon, make it kind of big, and I'm just going to do this. Just make a few scratchy marks on the canvas here. All right, now I say, okay, that's going to be a brush stamp that I like. I like that. That's going to be a brush stamp. I want to draw with that. Okay, maybe I want to erase some of the bits in the middle, make it a little more sparse. Just using that same brush with the touch modifier. How convenient. Okay, so what do I do? Well, all I have to do is do a quick export, save the image. Okay, so that's now been saved to my camera roll. All right, here we have Adobe Capture. Now, I'm currently in my Max 2020 library. All my libraries, these are my Creative Cloud libraries, show up right here, okay? And I want to make a new brush. So I'm going to go to Brushes, okay, up here at the top right. See, we have these different categories. Brushes on the far right. And I'm going to say Add. So a little plus button at the bottom in that blue bar. Say Add. Import image. Camera roll. There is the image I just had. There it is. And automatically, Capture will remove all the white because it knows I don't want that. I just want the little black mark right there. Okay, and I say, yes, that's what I want. And right away, look, I have categories, Photoshop and Fresco brushes. See that? So I want to select, they have different categories of brushes that are automatically attach different behaviors to it. I want to start with a basic one like this. Okay, and then I can come to Settings, crank the size up, right? And I can have the minimum size be 0, which means I'm going to be drawing with it. By the way, you can test it as you go over here on the left. And I want to use pressure to control the size. And I have different options here for having it repeat its shape. I have spacing, which can be changed. Scattering, which can be changed. Okay, you can scatter on both axes. Size jitter, angle jitter. All these kinds of things you're familiar with, okay? And if I save that brush, reduce that spacing a little bit. There we go. If I save this brush, all it asks me to do is make a little name for it. And let's see, we'll call that Test. Okay, done. And I'm going to save it in that library. So we see it adds it now at the top of that library. So that is a standard pixel brush, Photoshop brush, and I just made it from a stamp. The moment I go back over to Fresco, you will notice that I can come into my libraries. Remember those? So I come down here to that Max 2020 library. Ta-da! And look at the bottom. There's my test brush. And now I'm drawing with it. And I can come in here and I can start playing. All right, let's take the size. We're going to use pen pressure to control size. We're going to reduce that angle jitter a little bit. We'll do flip X and Y jitter. Let's go back to, let's do scattering. And I want to have a triple count. I want to increase the scattering a little bit. Do it on both axes. Come back here. I want to decrease the spacing. And what else? I think that's pretty good for now. Can bump up the size of that brush. Check it out. Now it looks like that. I can reduce that smoothing. Very nice. Very, very nice. So there's me experimenting and just creating a little brush with a really ridiculously fast workflow. But wait a second. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Let me show you what you can actually do, because this is crazy, folks. All right. Check out this brush. What you're looking at here is tree bark. And you'll notice that as I paint and draw with it, it actually corners smoothly and fluidly. You see that? This is a Capture ribbon brush, and this is a completely crazy kind of brush, and I want to show you how it works. So open that up, and we're going to go to Edit It, so you can see how it was built. Now, this came from a photograph, so just check this out here. If I go to my albums for Capture, I have these pictures of tree bark that I took just in my backyard. Okay, 3 different kinds of trees right here, 1, 2, and 3. And I just crop them so that all I see is the bark. And I would come into Capture and make a brush out of it. And the category of brush I'm using is right here. If you see Fresco ribbon brushes, see this right here on the right? Now, a ribbon brush is a brush that allows you to take anything that is an RGB image. So you can create a full color image and make it into a brush. And you can also play with different styles of the brush. So for example, you have a brush like this. See what it's doing? It's actually pulling and stretching all the information that's in that photograph as you go. All right, which is nuts. And we have our standard ribbon brush that I've been using, right? I want to cancel out of this for a second because I want to show you how I can create a brush from scratch. All right. First though, I just want to do a quick tree because it's so fun. So check this out. I've got this Red Riding Hood image here. Where is little Red Riding Hood? Where are you? Where'd she go? Where's she hiding? Oh gosh, I wonder if I finally deleted that image. I've had it for ages. I'm just not seeing it. Maybe someone else is seeing it and I'm missing it. Am I blind? I don't know. Come on, folks. Where is it? Oh, I don't see it. All right, no worries. I'll just go ahead and paint a tree from scratch. So go over to that Max 2020 library right here. Ta-da. Grab that bark brush, make it a little bigger, and yeah, I'm just gonna throw a little tree in here. And I can make this respond to pressure as well. Fill in the middle there. I can make the size a little smaller and just start painting some smaller branches. You can change the color. Look at this. Isn't that crazy? It takes your RGB image and it tints it. So now it's tinting it a little bluish gray kind of color. So anything can be a brush. And I'll show you how I built that. Before I do, here's something crazy I just thought you'd have fun with. By the way, these brushes can be made up to 1,000 pixels, just so you know. Here's me, I just wanted to make myself a little taller. See, I can make my little legs go up a little taller. Isn't that fun? Yeah. So fantasies, right? Fantasies. Okay. So jumping back here for a moment, go to Adobe Capture. If I want to make a new brush from an image, okay, how do you do that? You come over here, you add a brush, import image from the camera roll, and I'm going to go to my albums again and go to the Capture. Here we go. Here's that bark brush, right? There's a photo. I say, yes, this is what I want. Now I go to crop. Okay, first, actually, sorry, change the style to ribbon brush. There we go. Now, here's the cool thing about ribbon brushes. You get a head, a tail, and a body. Look at this. I am rotating and resizing the section of the photo that I want to use. And I can decide how big I want the tail of that brush to be, which section I want to be the body, which is the area that's going to repeat the most, and where the head is going to be for that brush. And then I just crop in on it, position it exactly the way I want it, and then I go to my settings. I can increase the size. Okay, there we go. Looks good. I can have pressure control the size. If I crank that all the way up to 100, that's going to mean that I'm going to be able to control it in Fresco with a teeny tiny amount of pressure to make a small stroke. I can save this. We'll just call it brush 7. That's fine. Doesn't matter for now. It adds it, and I come back into Fresco and open up that library, and it's going to bring it in. You'll see it appear in just a moment. Takes a couple of seconds because it's saving it across the library. I'll grab this other brush for just a moment because I want to show you what I mean about brush controls. Pressure dynamics, crank that all the way up to 100 for size, which means now I can do tiny, 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 up to big, 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 and then all the way down to tiny, 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 tiny. Right? So you can imagine how useful that is for having control over whatever you want to paint. All right, and there it is, brush 7. See that? Took a couple of seconds, and now it's updated. That is how you can create a brush from a photograph. Alrighty. Now, what else can you do with Capture? All right, I've got a little bit of time to show you this because it's really, really cool. So, I'm gonna turn this off for a moment. And Capture allows you to create shapes. And when I say shapes, what I mean are vector assets. All right, so check this out. I'm going to come over here to our shape tool in Fresco. And if you haven't used your shape tools yet, get on it because these are so cool. You have basic shapes you can make, right? So then you have circle, square, polygon. You can add sides to that polygon. And you can then take that polygon and you can make a selection out of it if you wish. Okay, you could fill it with color, do whatever you want. But let's take it a step further. We're going to use, if I go back from basic shapes, my Halloween shapes. So I created shapes using Capture simply by importing pixel art that I had created. These are simple silhouettes that I drew of these various Halloween characters, okay? And Capture turned them into infinitely scalable vector shape assets. Say that 10 times fast. In a couple of seconds, I threw them in a library, I bring them in Fresco, and check it out. Here we go. Bam. Now, what happened there? Oh, look at this. Now I've got that custom shape. I can resize it, right? If I want to fill it, I just say fill. Oops, I've still got a selection. Hang on a minute. I got to... Oh, that's fun. Check it out. I made a selection of all of it. I can make that a vector if I want. Ooh, very nice. All right, let's start over again. Grab another shape. Maybe we want to do this little cat. Okay, I can resize it. I can put it over here. And I make a new layer. Now, if I say fill, again, I have my options. Pixel art, vector art. I can make it vector art. Okay, and now, of course, it is infinitely scalable. And I've just made myself a little piece of vector art. Very nice. So capture shapes work like this. Okay, you can swap them out. You've got libraries and libraries of them. Of course, they take up almost no space at all because they're vector art. Isn't that fun? So I could do this all day. I wanted you to see that as well because it's another really cool thing that we have. Alrighty, now on to more 2020 features. And I'm going to just pause for a moment first and see if we have any questions. What do we have here? Let's see. Alrighty. Questions from the audience. Let's see. Streams tomorrow. Nope. Tomorrow's Saturday. I don't think, well, individual people will be streaming, but I think Adobe Live is not streaming. Palm rejection. I haven't had any issues with palm rejection, but you know, some folks, if you are, turn off palm rejection, make sure that that's off. Made my first... Oh, you made a capture brush, William. That's so cool. Yeah, make more. All right. Yes, Ariana, so many awesome tools to use. I agree with you. There are so many awesome tools to use. It's kind of overwhelming. All right, so another thing you can do. Gosh, we're just really has a lot to talk about here. But let's take a look at this monkey again. Now, imagine that you want to collaborate with a friend and you may be doing this design for a client or something, and maybe you're doing the background and your friend is doing the foreground or something like that. And you want to make comments on the illustration. So maybe I say to my friend George, I say, hey, George, I want you to take a look at this file and I want you to leave some comments for me. So if you look in the top right where we have our layers, right here, and our layer properties, right underneath that, there's a new icon, comments. So if I tap on share link, what's going to happen is it's going to make a link for me to copy and send to my friend. And you'll notice here at the bottom, it says allow comments and allow save to Creative Cloud. So that person can save this file and they can simply tap on the comments window when they open it, and they can leave me comments, which is really cool. So I say, great. Okay, I'll copy that link. And now I can make a comment. So the very first comment I can have is I can say, hey, George. Sorry, it's all lowercase, but you know, I'm typing on my screen. What do you think? Okay, so you can look at that. I can hit submit. It's going to appear. And now we have this little comment chain going. It's saved in the document at all times, and you can access it with that little comments icon right there, which is very handy. And there it is. I can look at it anytime. They can give me feedback and we can collaborate on something. And that's really nice. Alrighty, so I've covered smudge. I've covered capture ribbon brushes. I've covered, let's see, we talked a little bit about the multicolor eyedropper, which is something that is a really amazing feature, though not in the 2020 version release. It came out actually back in July, but I think it's important for more people to know about it. We've talked about type in Fresco. We've talked about being able to change the pressure curves. We've talked about brush management. We've talked about saving different versions of your art and being able to go back through the art that you've saved. And that's all saved, remember, along with the file, which is really neat. And remember, all Photoshop, or sorry, I'm getting myself twisted around. All Fresco files are saved as Cloud PSDs, Cloud Photoshop documents. What that means is, if I go in and I edit any of these in Photoshop, right, those changes are also saved and they become part of that version history. So that's another cool thing about this is I can go flipping around between apps, right? Maybe I can open this Photoshop on my iPad, do a little bit more image adjustment kind of a thing, maybe do some other transformations or whatnot, add some things here and there, come back to Fresco. Everything just moves fluidly back and forth, and all that data is saved in the file, which is really, really neat. We talked a little bit about how libraries work, so you understand a bit better how that works, and vector shapes, right? And folks, gosh, that's a lot of things to talk about. So I hope this was informative and interesting for you all, and thank you for joining me. I see one other comment. Is there a way to find that file link for comments after the window has been closed? Yeah, you just tap on the comments again right here, that little icon right there. Whoops, that wasn't the one I was using. Whichever file I was doing the comments on, here it is, this little monkey. I just tap on the comments and it'll show up again. I hope that answers your question. How does the Illustrator iPad app compare with Fresco? They're completely different, Whitney. Illustrator is all about vector art. We do have vector brushes in Fresco, but Illustrator is a powerhouse vector art app. Please check it out. I don't have time to go into all the things it can do, but it's tremendous. A lot of people love it. It's getting a great reviews on the App Store and great feedback. All right, folks, everybody take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Remember to be kind. I'll see you soon, and thanks for hanging out with me for this masterclass. Take care.